Did you know that at the very tips of your DNA, there's a kind of countdown clock for your cells? What's really wild is that the speed of that clock might have a lot to do with what's happening in your gut. So here's what we're going to cover. We'll start with what telomeres even are. Then we'll get into how they work as a cellular clock. After that, we'll talk about what makes that clock speed up. And of course, why any of this matters. Finally, we'll wrap it all up. All right, let's dive in. You can think of your chromosomes as the master blueprint for you. They hold all your genetic information. So the big question is, what keeps that incredibly important blueprint safe? Well, that's where telomeres come into play. They're these little structures made of DNA and protein, and you'll find them right at the tips of our chromosomes. Their main job is to act like guardians, protecting all that vital genetic code. You know, the easiest way to picture this is to think about a shoelace. You've got those little plastic tips on the ends, right? They stop the lace from fraying and turning into a mess. Telomeres do basically the same thing for our DNA. They prevent it from unraveling, which for a cell would be a total disaster. Okay, so they're protective caps. Got it. But how in the world does a protective cap also work as a timer? Let's take a look at how this all connects to the way our cells age. So here's what happens. Your cells are constantly dividing. It's how your body repairs itself. But every single time a cell divides, the machinery that copies the DNA can't quite get to the very, very end. So with each division, those little telomere caps get just a tiny bit shorter. Now, your body does have a special enzyme to help rebuild them, but over a lifetime, the shortening usually wins out. Eventually, they get so short that they can't do their job anymore. And at that point, the cell just stops dividing. It enters a state you could call cellular retirement. This whole process has a name. It's called the Hayflick limit. It's basically the idea that our cells have a set number of times they can divide before they're done. And the thing that's actually counting down those divisions, it's the shortening of the telomeres. And what is that number? Well, for most of our cells, it's somewhere around 40 to 60 divisions. On one hand, this is a really important safety feature. It helps prevent cells from dividing out of control. But on the other hand, it's also a core part of how we age on a cellular level. Okay, so this shortening is a totally normal, natural part of life. But some things can basically hit the fast forward button on this cellular clock, making it tick way faster than it's supposed to. And the two main culprits that speed things up, oxidative stress and chronic inflammation. You can think of these two as the biggest sources of wear and tear on our cells. So what are they? Well, oxidative stress is kind of like cellular rust. It's damage caused by these unstable molecules. And it turns out the DNA in our telomeres is particularly vulnerable to this kind of rust. Then there's chronic inflammation. That's when your immune system gets stuck in a low-level on switch. It's constantly sending out these inflammatory signals. And those signals can actually block the enzyme that's supposed to be repairing the telomeres. It's basically like it's shutting down the repair crew. So that leads to a really important question. Where is all this body-wide inflammation coming from? Well, more and more, the research seems to be pointing to one specific area, our gut. There's a lot of evidence now that suggests an imbalanced gut microbiome, when the community of microbes in your gut is all out of whack, can be a huge source of that low-grade chronic inflammation that can then spread throughout your whole body. And this isn't just a theory either. There's real research on this. A study in Nature Genetics found a direct link. They looked at people with ulcerative colitis, which is a condition involving severe gut inflammation, and they found that this inflammation was directly tied to their telomeres getting shorter. And this can create a really nasty feedback loop. So inflammation makes telomeres shorten faster. That creates more of those retired cells. But here's the kicker. Those retired cells don't just go away quietly. They actually start pumping out more inflammatory signals themselves, which of course causes more inflammation and more damage. It's a cycle that can just feed itself. Okay, this is all really interesting science. But what does it actually mean for us, in our real lives? Why should we care about these tiny little caps on our DNA? Well, first, it's really empowering to know how much is in our hands. While our genes definitely play a part in how we age, maybe 20 to 30%, the huge majority, we're talking 70 to 80%, is shaped by our lifestyle and our environment. That means the things that affect our telomeres, they're largely things we can influence.
So the key takeaway here isn't that telomere length can predict your lifespan down to the day. That's not it at all. Instead, think of it as a marker of your biological age, not the number of candles on your cake. It's really a measure of your body's cellular resilience, how well it can bounce back, repair damage, and just keep itself running smoothly.
And one of the biggest influences seems to be our diet. I mean, just look at the difference. On one side, you have a Mediterranean-style diet. It's full of foods that help calm inflammation, and it's associated with longer telomeres. Then you have the typical Western diet, lots of processed stuff, sugars, and it does the exact opposite. It creates the perfect storm of oxidative stress and inflammation that makes those telomeres shorten faster. And this isn't a small effect either. One study found that even just a modest shift towards a Mediterranean diet corresponded to about 4.5 years of slower biological aging. That's a really big deal.
So you see, it's not about one single magic bullet. It's about the overall pattern. Things like eating anti-inflammatory foods, getting the right nutrients, moving your body, and finding ways to manage stress, they all work together to create an environment inside your body that helps protect those telomeres.
All right, let's bring it all home and wrap this up with the main takeaway. So in a nutshell, telomeres are the protective caps on our DNA, and they get shorter each time a cell divides. That's our cellular clock. But things like inflammation can make that clock tick faster, and a whole lot of that inflammation, we're now learning, can be traced back to the health of our gut, which is deeply connected to our daily lifestyle choices. This video is for educational purposes only and is not medical advice.